Now, Washington Mornings on the Mall. 105.9 FM. And AM 630. WMAL.
737 on WMAL. Brian Neiman, Brian Wilson with you. And KT McFarland joins us now, Fox News national security analyst. Good morning, KT.
Good morning.
Well, you pieced together the reporting on this Benghazi thing and what some members of Congress have said in the last 24 hours. And if true, I mean, it's just completely unacceptable. And it's damning to the administration and especially the State Department.
Yeah.
Now we hear that there were multiple attacks in Libya in the last 6 months, including 2 attacks on the consulate in Benghazi. Yeah. And Congressman Ice and Chaffetz say that they have whistleblowers who have told them that there were multiple requests for increased security in Benghazi, and those requests were denied. ABC says that Ambassador Stevens specifically told a former military official it was unsafe to travel there. So we weren't prepared for the attack on 9/11, and apparently there may have been some warnings about it on Facebook beforehand, and then for 8 days afterwards, the administration was saying it's because of a movie. I mean, you've been around Washington, I mean, this smells really bad.
I was in the White House during Watergate, and this bears a lot of similarities. It's something that happened before, the Watergate break-in was June 1972, called a third-rate burglary. Mainstream media ignored it, but the Washington Post pursued it. In fact, only 2 reporters on the Washington Post pursued it. So Nixon was reelected handily in 1972. But then by the summer of 1973, what happened? Watergate hearings, congressional hearings, investigations, whistleblowers came forward. Some didn't come forward, but certainly talked. And at the end of the day, you had an unpopular president who ended up resigning to avoid facing impeachment charges. Do I think Barack Obama's got something to cover up? I don't know, but I sure do know that the problem is never the crime, it's the cover-up. Mm-hmm. And there looks like there's a lot of covering up, and it also looks like there might be, if you're going to be generous, you're going to call this negligence. Yeah. Is there something even worse? I think, by the way, to me, the first early warning sign, canary in the coal mine, was the fact that Hillary Clinton did not go on those morning talk shows 3 weeks ago. It was Susan Rice. And I said at the time, in fact, the next morning on Fox, I said, there's something fishy here because the UN ambassador doesn't have anything to do with U.S. embassies overseas. The UN ambassador, that's the Secretary of State. UN ambassador doesn't have anything to do with intelligence. That's the CIA. UN ambassador doesn't have anything to do with Marine Guards. That's the Defense Department. So why did she go out? And then I checked to see if Hillary Clinton was in Washington and could have gone out on those talk shows. And Panetta as well. They were all there. They just didn't do it. Now, why? I think because they saw there was some real problems with this.
And the other thing, I agree with you about that completely, KT. The other thing that caught my attention on that was the fact that Hillary Clinton went to the Hill to give a briefing and said absolutely nothing. Yeah.
I think the mainstream media has kind of moved on. They're onto the debates and they'll go on. But I think there will be a steady behind-the-scenes drumbeat. A couple of media outlets, hopefully Fox, will continue to cover it. But whistleblowers are going to come forward now. Mm-hmm. Not political appointees who are spinning things, but people in the diplomatic service, in the security services, and the intelligence services who are really concerned, and they will come forward. And I think that's why if you end up having congressional hearings, and this thing then goes on in the period between the election and the inauguration, I just think that there's something there that's going to end up coming out. Now, is it just a political embarrassment and a timeline that's going to affect the election and make a big deal politically? I don't think so, because I don't think, is this a real problem for them? Yes. Is it a political problem? No, nobody really cares that much.
That's a shame. I'm not sure I agree.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think things are turning on that, especially with this new information that we have now. Listen, terror attacks are going to happen, and we're not going to be able to stop all of them from happening. But if you have people on the ground asking for more security, and if you've had previous attacks there, why in the world would you deny it?
Well,
I mean, why would you say?
That's why I think that there are 3 really big policy issues here. One, what the heck was wrong with our intelligence community? They never saw September 11th coming. They never saw the Arab uprising, the Arab Spring coming, and they never saw this. Why didn't they see it? Why didn't they hear from our new pals in Libya about this cell that they've been unable to disarm? Why did they not know that al-Qaeda had moved on to try to hijack some of the Arab uprising states? 2, security, like you said. Why on earth, with all these warnings, did they not give adequate security? I mean, that's negligent bordering on criminal. And 3rd, the policy. did we make a big mistake in the Middle East, Bush administration and then Obama administration, by trying to push the freedom agenda, and particularly the Obama administration by shoving dictators off their perches and then not knowing what's going to come next? In the case of Libya, we probably armed this guy who was one of the people they think responsible for the attacks, Ben Kumu. Did we arm a former Gitmo guy, former Al-Qaeda guy, somebody we called an ally of sorts in the Libyan war, and he's presumably the mastermind of the Libyan attacks? There's just a lot of policy questions about, did we go in the wrong direction here, and what can we do to save it?
See, I think you sum this whole story up in just like one sentence. They tried to get help. They were denied. They tried. They denied. People died, and then they lied.
Yeah,
that's what it's about.
Died, denied, and lied.
Yeah.
And you hate to use these slogans and things like that, because it sounds like it could have been prevented, or you could have at least had a chance to stop it from happening. I mean, to me, that's the big question as to why in the world would we not? Why would we have more security at an embassy in Europe than we would in Benghazi?
My apartment building in New York City had more security September 11th than in a nice neighborhood in New York.
You're right.
Than they did in a bad neighborhood in the Middle East.
All right. Having said all that, especially about the stuff about pushing dictators out, then why should we be trying to push out Bashar al-Assad in Syria? Or should we just say, you know what, let it happen the way it's going to happen?
No, I don't think, but the point is, do you push out in a matter of a couple of days or a couple of weeks? Do you arm people you don't know who you're arming? You need to know a lot more about the situation. I think at Syria, there's a lot we could do that we're not doing. We're not doing we're not doing as much as we could to do relief aid, safe zones, safe harbors, that kind of stuff, this sort of non-military stuff. If we are arming, or if we are covertly aiding, who are we aiding? It looks like the Syrian Free Army is sort of no longer the main guy on the action. And then the other thing is, who is aiding the bad guys, who are the bad rebels? I'm sure there are a lot of good rebels, but there's some bad rebels too, as we saw in Libya, now in Syria. Who's aiding them? Is that the Saudis? If so, I think we need to talk to them.
This movie has been going on for decades. It's been going on since at least the 70s, of us, arming people, helping people out, who then years later, decades later, then turn around and try and kill us.
Yeah, but unfortunately, in the case of Libya, it looks like it was in less than a year. And the whole thing about blaming everything on this movie, what kind of a rap then does the administration take? They said, well, we didn't cooperate with this silly YouTube video. Shouldn't blame us. Yeah. What's going to happen when the Bin Laden movie comes out? The movie that they've sponsored and everything else. When the entire world is going to watch on big screen Hollywood, U.S. Navy SEALs putting bullets in Osama bin Laden.
All right, KT.
Is the world going to go? Is that part of the world going to go up in smoke?
I would not be surprised.
KT, it's always a pleasure. Thanks very much.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, KT.